do not have a long agenda, but we don't know how long things may morph into as it relates to the committee meeting. We will start with requests for bill introductions. Committee, do you have any requests for bill introductions? Seeing none, does anyone in the audience have requests for a bill introduction? Seeing none, we will move forward with our agenda, and the item on the agenda is hearing on Senate Bill 347. So we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 347. We will receive a briefing from our revisor as to what exactly the bill does from her perspective. Revisor Lawrence, welcome.
I don't know about that, Mr. Chairman, but good morning. Thank you. So currently, state law provides that the governor appoints members of the Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission. Senate Bill 347 would require the governor's appointments to that commission to be confirmed by the Senate. The bill also makes some technical amendments and would take effect upon July 1 on publication in the statute book, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, committee. Do you have questions of our revisor on the bill? This is Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Revisor, for the information. Are the members that are currently appointed, are they recommended by any particular entity, or are they just solely at the discretion of the governor?
So there are certain requirements or suggestions, considerations that the governor is supposed to undertake when making those appointments, but I do not believe, at least in statute, there is a formal process for any entity to recommend members to the governor.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Senator Reichman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And just to follow up with that, as far as senators' confirmations, who are the group of people we do appoint or, confirm, and why wasn't this in there before? I was wondering, you can't answer that last part, but that's just my question. Thank you.
I don't know off the top of my head the number of bodies or people that the Senate has confirmation over, but I can look into that and get it back to you.
Additional questions, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I should have looked up the KSA number, the 75-431-5B, and will. But what happens when the Senate isn't in session?
That's a wonderful question. I do have that statute if you want to read it in just a minute, but that statute deals with appointment of public officers subject to confirmation by the Senate. And it does have to do, they are received, considered, and acted upon according to the rules of the Senate. When the Senate is not in session, it does go to the Confirmations Oversight Committee, and they do the hearings and are able to do that. And that's essentially what that statute says, but I will give you a copy of that so you can read through it. Okay, perfect.
Another question along that line. The commission can operate with less than full numbers, correct or incorrect?
It could. So I believe what the statute says, so there are 7 members of the commission, and I believe what the statute said is a quorum is a majority of those members. So they could operate with 4.
Okay, so they could operate with less than 7 if there was a temporary vacancy.
Correct.
And is there a requirement of time when there is a vacancy for the governor to appoint a replacement to the commission?
In the statute, I don't believe there's a time. It just says the governor shall fill any vacancy prior to the expiration of a term by appointment of the unexpired term.
Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How is this different than RS 2511?
I am unfamiliar with RS 2511.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a question that you would like our staff to get an answer for you, or do you think one of the conferees may answer that, Senator Dahl? Or?
I think one of the conferees is going to enlighten us, I would think.
Okay, we'll find out. All right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And now, in the bill, current statute says that the governor shall give consideration to the appointment of licensed hunters, fishermen, and fur trappers, park users, and on. That says the governor shall give consideration but does not require. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the governor could appoint individuals to the commission who don't care anything about hunting, fishing, fur harvesting, et cetera.
The statute requires the governor to give consideration to those things, but it does not actually require the appointees to have that type of experience.
I understand that answer. That's the answer I expected. Senator Dahl.
There's a bill coming that addressed that the governor will have to have confirmation by the Senate for like vacancies in the lieutenant governor and all that sort of thing. That would not apply at all to this bill, would it?
Reviser.
I would have to review that particular bill, but typically bills operate separately. Sometimes through the process, they do get combined or things get moved together, but at this point, they would be separate.
So, Tamara, I have to look at that other bill to be specific, that I think it's specific to what they can't do. So that's what I need to look for on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Reichman may be able to enlighten you, Senator Dahl.
I believe you're talking about a one we had in Fenton State, and we passed that, and it would, my understanding of the bill, it would not affect this. This is separate. That was doing with the Lieutenant Governor, Secretary, Treasurer, and Insurance. It has nothing to do with this bill. Thank you.
All right, so I think we've asked enough questions of our reviser. We'll go ahead and move into the proponents of the legislation as introduced. Our first proponent up today is Senator Mark Steffen. Senator Steffen, welcome to the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee.
Thank you, Senator Mark Steffen, District 34. All right, well, let's take a look. You know, kind of the way this came to being was I was making circles on a tractor this summer just thinking about this. Hunting's very important to me. And it just kind of came to me that I did not think that there was much appointing oversight. And then I kind of reflected on that and came up with this bill that we would have Senate confirmation of these wildlife and parks commissioners, particularly with the caveat that they would do so with the express intent of ensuring that Section 21 of our Kansas Constitution Bill of Rights is carried out. And I brought you all gifts. I'll let a good senator know pass them out. and Section 21 says, I think this was passed in 1916. It was very recent. And again, this is part of our state constitution, is the right of public to hunt, fish, and trap wildlife. The people have the right to hunt, fish, and trap, including by the use of traditional methods, subject to reasonable laws and regulations that promote wildlife conservation and management that preserve the future of hunting and fishing. So it's very clear, and I think the second part's particularly important is it does kind of frame the rules and regulations and what those rules and regulations are intended to do. From there, I think it's important that we just take a minute and review KSA Section 32805. And since the good Senator Dahl was so offended, I'll go the other direction. Good job, Senator. And this kind of defines, and look at Section D, and I'm going to take just a second to read it. It says, the commission shall have such powers, duties, and functions as prescribed by law, other than rules and regulations pertaining to personnel matters of the department. The secretary shall submit to the commission all proposed rules and regulations. The commission shall either approve, modify and approve, or reject such proposed rules and regulations. The secretary shall adopt such rules and regulations so approved, or so modified and approved. So it's very clear that the ultimate say of the rules and the regulations within wildlife and parks is in the hands of the commissioners, which ties them inseparably to Section 21 of our Bill of Rights. They are locked together inseparably. And from that, it just seems to me that any administration, any governor, not just now, but going forward, with this constitutional right to hunt, fish, and trap, there needs to be checks and balances on anybody appointing to the Wildlife and Parks Commission. Basically, it's that simple for me. It's that important to the people of Kansas that they put it in the Constitution. It's that important to me that we do the best job of it we possibly can. From there, I do want to mention that, interestingly, totally separately, Representative Corbett came up with the same idea. And which really is kind of interesting that, in the same summer, two completely separate entities come up with this idea that we need better oversight. Representative Corbett's plan is different than mine, but I embrace it and I support it. And I think these can be melded together and really ensure that Section 21 is carried out going forward. So, like I say, I've talked to Ken, and I support him 100% because what we're trying to accomplish is far more important than somebody winning in a bill race. So take it. I encourage you all to look it over. Make sure you understand the intricacies, understand exactly what the commissioner's responsibilities are, and it is their responsibility to approve or adjust rules and regulations. They do have a major role, according to statute, the sole role to set license prices. So they are very much integrally involved in production of revenue for the department as well. They are the key players in the wildlife and parks rules and regs. So take a look, see what you think. Like I say, I'm 100% on board with Representative Corbett and his suggestions as well. I look forward to seeing this play out to the betterment of the citizen hunters, fishermen, and trappers of the state. Thank you all very much.
Senator, you will stand for questions, I'm presuming, correct?
You want me to now or later?
Now.
Sure, be happy to, as long as they're softball questions.
From this committee.
And as long as this microphone over here doesn't work.
For the record, since our conferee has provided additional information to the committee, it will be attached to your testimony as an official record from the hearing. And for those who do not have a copy or those listening online, he provided a copy of a portion of the Kansas Constitution, which includes Section 21, and he also provided KSA 32-805 and highlighted Section D, which again, Senator Stephan, this will be a part of the permanent record. I appreciate you providing this to the committee. Should have been done with your testimony, but we'll muddle through.
Appreciate that.
Certainly.
My apologies.
Certainly. Senator Reichman has a question.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. My understanding, and going on with Representative Ken Corbett, that you would want his to be amended to what he has to the bill you brought, or what are you suggesting?
Well, I think ultimately I would be incredibly happy if we took Representative Corbett's bill and just added the Senate confirmation to the non-Senate, well, to all of them actually. I think they should all be Senate confirmed. That's what I would recommend doing.
Thank you.
Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Stephan, when you were driving in circles on your tractor, was there a concern about limits on hunting, fishing, and such that prompted all this? I guess I'm asking, what's the backstory?
Well, that's a great question. You know, there is a bit of a concern within the conservation community that over time, as our population becomes more urban and less rural, there may be more of an anti-hunting attitude, and that would probably be my best explanation of where that comes from. You know, and with the constitutional amendment, you know, I feel like we need to solidify that right to hunt, fish, and trap.
And a room full of senators would guarantee that for you?
Now, that's a really good question. You know, there's no perfect way to do that, but that's the concept that flows into the way our government works best, and that is why I expressly put in that they're to do that on the basis of Section 21 of our Bill of Rights. This bill gives them guidance on how they're supposed to approve these commissioners.
And you're sure that that we're not risking an imbalance in our 3 sections of government in adding more power to the legislative branch?
Yeah, no, I sure wouldn't see it that way. I would see this a furtherance of the checks and balances of which our government was built on.
Additional questions, committee? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So following up on that, I'm wondering, again, how would confirmation by the Senate preserve those rights? Those rights are preserved as part of the Constitution. There's not, if we have more senators representing urban areas, there may be that, but I have a lot of what I believe are urban constituents who support hunting and fishing and those rights. So I don't see how the confirmation would be tied to how you preserve the rights in the Constitution. I think we preserve the rights in the Constitution by not changing them.
Well, and I think Chairman Peck's question to the reviser was spot on. In statute, the governor really doesn't have the responsibility to ensure that Section 21, now the governor at every step of the way is sworn to our Constitution, but they have leeway in picking these commissioners, and they're really not, their obligation is just to pick a fit individual. This kind of ups it a little bit and makes sure that the selection process also has the opportunity to further Section 21. So again, I come back to the checks and balances. I think it's a beautiful check and balance. I think it's a common sense check and balance.
I'm reading ahead in some of the testimony, and the Nature Conservancy talks about that if we want to add additional requirements to the appointments of commissioners, that we could include that objective criteria. So that would change it from political confirmation to we want to make sure that we're appointing people that have had a hunting license for at least 10 years, you know, in the state of Kansas. There are some things that we could write in that wouldn't be as political as a Senate confirmation process, but could guarantee that. And we could add, those commissioners take an oath. So they are following the Constitution.
Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Stephan. I think one of the core principles of our form of government is the right to redress your grievances with government. So if someone had a grievance with rules and regulations, which, as you clearly explained on page 2, in line 2 and 3, that the commission shall either approve, modify, or approve or reject such proposed rules and regulations. If someone had an issue with those rules and regulations that are basically the ultimate authority of this board, who would they go to redress that grievance currently?
Well, that's a great question, and that kind of brings into my mind, and if you want to elaborate on your point further, please do. But when you look at the system as it is, there is no elected official that you can go to. I think, is that what the point you're making? There is literally no elected official in that process. You know, confirmation by the Senate, you know, that's about the lightest touch of redress that you can possibly get, but at least it's headed in the right direction. And that's a great point in regards to Representative Corbett's bill. You know, if you allow some of the appointments to be made by elected officials, that furthers that interaction with your representative rather than an appointed official. That's a great point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the reason I asked that is last fall, while the commission was meeting, there were a number of constituents of mine and also people who were not constituents of mine who contacted me about some grievances they had with some of the things that the board was even discussing. And they simply did not know how do we influence this commission? How does my representative, we are a representative republic, how does my representative address these issues? And I listened in on some of those board meetings, and I will say that it concerned me that a number of the people on the commission really had no experience in hunting or fishing in the state. They were more concerned with tourism and conservation and recreational activities, but not so much on the actual preservation of hunting, fishing, and trapping rights. So thank you. I appreciate this.
Okay, let's try to stay to questions committee if we could. We'll have an opportunity, if we work the bill, to get into more of our thoughts on the legislation.
Did I hear when or if?
We shall see how the hearing goes. Are there additional questions of Senator Stephan? All right. Seeing none, our next conferee is Representative Ken Corbett. And Representative Corbett, welcome to the committee. I did notice in your testimony that you did not reference the bill at hand, Senate Bill 347. I'll give a little bit of a long leash here because of the fact that the first conferee, Senator Stephan, did reference your legislation, and that's what it looks like your testimony is in regards to versus the bill. So I would ask you to be brief, since we do not have this bill in front of us that you're talking about.
This was read in yesterday. It'll be a bill today on the floor, but sometimes there's more, seems like there's more representatives wanting bills made, and it takes them a little bit longer to apparently get them out, so whatever. But this refers, if you want to look it up real quick, would be RS 2024 or RS 2511. And basically, whatever comes out of this, it's truly my belief that the commission needs to be reconfigured and rechanged. This bill moves the commission, increases it from 9 to 7. The members of the Wildlife and Parks Commission shall be appointed as follows. The governor would appoint 3. The president of the Senate would appoint 2. The Speaker of the House would appoint 2. And the Attorney General would appoint 2. This gives you 4 pretty good ponds to be picking some of the people who would probably want to carry on the vision of what we need in this state for hunting and fishing. No more than 3 commissioners shall be residents of the same congressional district. Each commissioner shall serve a term of 4 years, which may be renewed at the discretion of the appointing official, and it shall take effect July 1 of 24. What a lot of people don't understand is that the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, which are consumptive, pay for a lot of non-consumptive things that you all get to do. And I think referring to a comment made over here, the commission and the secretary in the last 12 months to show you how it's affected tourism in the state of Kansas. Out-of-state duck hunters can't hunt on state waters on Sunday, Monday. More restrictions on out-of-staters for antelope. They cut 10,000 deer tags that weren't filled, and they cut 11,000 turkey tags. You add all of that up for tourism dollars and whatever, it's about $31.5 million that rural Kansas never got a part of for hotels and motels, convenience stores. There's reasons the state don't grow, and these little things here could fix it. And I would be glad to answer any questions I can for you.
All right, thank you, Representative. And again, committee, we will stick with Senate Bill 347, and he did give an overview of a House bill that will be introduced on the House side. We shall see if it clears the House and comes over here. But if you wish to ask Representative Corbett questions regarding Senate Bill 347, we shall do so. Senator Ware.
I guess it's a background kind of question. You said that there are new restrictions. Do you know why those restrictions were put in?
I have my personal thoughts on that, but I can't, it seems like, it looks like the records that I have asked for, that a lot of your resident hunting and fishing license sales are down, and same way with deer and turkey. There's plenty of everything. There's 45 million acres of hunting and fishing ground. This state is 97% privately owned. And when you get a hunting license from Wildlife and Parks, it's a piece of paper about the size of a playing card. It doesn't guarantee you a critter. It just gives you the opportunity to come to Kansas and enjoy yourself. So that's with that. But on the commission side, if you can make this work with the senator's bill, it's perfect. It's good. I just think this thing needs a good change. And why not try to get the best and the brightest? Because if anybody's listened to some of the commission meetings, you have commissioners basically saying that landowners and hunters are unethical. I don't like hearing that from somebody. I don't care whether they're appointed or not. But,
So I guess I'm still confused as to, I suspect there are probably reasons why restrictions were put into place. And that's kind of what I was getting at, not the rest of it.
when you buy a license, whether you're in state or out of state, everybody's hunting the critters they applied for. What would make a difference in Kansas on a duck hunter? Why wouldn't he be able to come on Sunday and Monday? Because basically, if you're traveling to Kansas, your two best days to get here that you're not taking vacation would be Saturday or Sunday. That's just on one of them. This bill just gets into the commission, but if you don't hunt or fish, that's okay. But I'd like to stay to what's on my, what I turned in to you. And if this was done, I think you'd get, out of those 9 appointees, that would give every representative in this building a chance to have a say with what's going on. And I think there are 165 people here. I think they could find 9 good people, and those you don't have to pick a representative. If Speaker Dahl wanted to pick somebody someday, that would be fine.
Representative Corbin, we really hope that doesn't happen.
Sorry, Chairman.
Additional question at all?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kansas, aren't our Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resource, of Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission, isn't that secretary confirmed by the Senate?
I believe the secretary is.
So, and does the secretary have any jurisdiction over this committee that we have currently?
Well, I've heard two stories. One secretary, who was Secretary Hayden, said to his commission, where they could hear it, you're just advisory and don't forget it. Whatever that. So I probably depends just how strong your secretary is. I don't know. But I just think it's, if you have like-minded people here who want to promote this state and provide hunting and fishing opportunities, it would be good to put people on there who enjoy the resource and would make sure Kansans have a good time.
So, I like this bill actually, but I think we have checks and balances. I just wanted to point that out to Senator Stephan, that there is a checks and balance all in place right now, so.
And I like it too, but even if you just did looked at this suggestion I sent to you today, it would stand on its own whether it was approved by the Senate or not. I think there's enough oversight there with 4 branches of government that everybody would be pretty well checked out, I would think.
I guess I was thinking that we had 3 branches of government, but if you want to add an additional one, we'll figure out how we can do it.
Supreme Court.
That's one. All right. No additional questions, I guess. Representative Corbett, thank you for appearing
you, guys.
before the committee today. Having no other proponents listed, committee, we will move to opponents of Senate Bill 347. And our first conferee is Secretary Lovelace, Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. Welcome to the committee, Secretary Lovelace.
Good morning, Chairman Peck, members of the committee. It's good to see you all again. Thank you for letting me speak about Senate Bill 347. My remarks are brief, and I am Brad Lovelace, Secretary of Wildlife and Parks. The Wildlife and Parks stands in opposition to this bill. Senate Bill 347 would require confirmation of appointees by the Senate to our commission. Under existing law, 1 Kansas resident is appointed by the governor from each Fish and Wildlife Administration region to fill a 4-year term. A maximum of 4 individuals out of 7 can be appointed from the same political party. So that was obviously put in place to create some balance. Under the existing appointment process, a vacancy can be speedily filled. And I would point out, first off, I would encourage, some of you have listened in on commission meetings, I'd encourage you to listen in and see how they work. They're all on tape. They're all of our commission meetings are open to the public in person as well as by Zoom. So we try to make it very open so people can, to Senator Straub's comment, make it accessible to people even if they can't travel to where the commission meeting is so they can give input. What you'll notice, I think, is historically there's not been a lot of turnover from administration to administration. People are typically appointed and do a good job, and there's consistency and not a lot of, I guess I would say, politics entering in to where a group is swept out and a new group is brought in when the person in the governor's chair changes. So I think that's a testimony to the consistency and the quality work that these folks have done over the years. In addition, the main purpose of this group, as has been pointed out, is to solicit public input during the regulatory promulgation process. Based on public feedback, proposed regulations may be amended, accepted, or rejected. However, the administrative functions of our agency, Wildlife and Parks, are not overseen by the commission. They are solely focused on the regulatory process. Nor does the Wildlife and Parks Secretary, being a cabinet-level position, answer to the commission. The commission is therefore different from other boards and commissions that currently require Kansas Senate confirmation. So we have listed, the question came up earlier, I think maybe by Senator Reichman, about who's under this. And if you look at the list that we've put down here, you'll see that these Senate-confirmed boards typically oversee budgets and or personnel, such as an executive assistant who reports directly to it. Wildlife and Parks is different, and the commission is different. And so it doesn't fit within the context of those other groups that require Senate confirmation. All of our, a lot of discussion's been voiced about proper oversight and Senate authority over this. And the thing that I would point out is that every reg that we pass has to fall within the statutes that you all control and that you all pass. Every single one has to fit within those. And secondly, our fees, question came up about who sets fees. The commission votes on those, but those all have to fall under the caps that you all set for us. So the Senate, the legislature has great control over what our agency does. And the regs and the fees have to fall underneath the requirements that you all set for us. We believe that the current system has served Kansas very well over its many years, and it really doesn't need fixing. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I would stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. In light of the information that we were provided, KSA 32-805, do you stand by your testimony, the wording in your testimony?
Correct.
You said in your testimony that the Secretary, being a cabinet position, nor does the Secretary, being a cabinet position, answer to the Commission.
Correct.
According to the statute we were given, the Secretary shall adopt rules and regulations so approved and so modified and or modified and approved. Speaking of the Commission, there are several things that the Commission has, it looks like to me, more authority than the Secretary as it relates to their powers and duties for rules and regulations and fees, as you mentioned, according to those set as a maximum by the legislature. But, Mr. Secretary, I would strongly disagree that you do not answer to the Commission.
Can I clarify?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so unlike most other states, usually the secretary is appointed, or in their cases, directors are appointed by commissions. And so they are hired, fired, and the commissions basically run the agency. In our case, it's totally different. The only interface we have with the commission is we make recommendations to them about regulations. They decide on regulations, but they don't control anything I do in regards to how we run the agency. But when it comes to the regulations that govern state hunting, fishing, trapping activities, they do have the final say. And so I apologize if that's, if I made that unclear, but I just wanted to separate their role in the reg setting process versus my role in running the agency.
That is understood, that you have personnel decisions, you run the agency, but you run the rules and regs, and you follow the rules and regs and implement the rules and regs as adopted by the Commission and or changed by the Commission. So,
yes.
Committee additional question, or do you wish to?
Nope, that's perfect. Yep.
Committee additional question, Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretary Lovelace. So I assume that you work fairly closely with this commission, because in that same section, D, it says that it shall also be the duty of the commission to serve in an advisory capacity to the governor and the secretary in the formulation of policies and plans relating to the department. I'm not sure if that's how it's operating right now, but that's what the statute says. My question is, how many of the current sitting commissioners have a current hunting or fishing license or trapping?
I can look that up to tell you exactly, but as I think about our 7 commissioners, I think there's one that might not have hunting or a fishing license. Most of them have both. We have one commissioner from up in the Kansas City area who's an avid fisherman, but I don't know that he hunts. So the majority are hunters and fishermen.
Okay.
Additional questions of Secretary Lovelace, Committee? All right, seeing none. Mr. Secretary, thank you for appearing before the committee today. Committee, we do have an additional opponent. It is written only unless Mr. Kurt Ratliff is here. I do not believe he is, but I will direct your attention to the written-only testimony as an opponent from Kurt Ratliff, who is the Kansas chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We will move to neutral. We do have one neutral individual, and that is Mr. Justin Cobb. He is the Government Relations Manager for the Nature Conservancy. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Chairman Peck and members of the committee, for the opportunity to provide neutral testimony on Senate Bill 347. As the chairman said, I represent the Nature Conservancy. The Conservancy is a conservation nonprofit that manages about 60,000 acres of land in Kansas. And we are staunch supporters of hunters, fishers, trappers, consumptive recreators, really as a great way of properly managing our wildlife populations in the state. Most recently, this last fall, we enrolled our Sand Hills Ranch, which is located on the border between Senator Reichman and Senator Straub's district, into the Walk-in Hunting Access Program. And I checked yesterday, 124 pheasants have been taken so far this season. So it's been a very productive spot, and we're happy to have those hunters there helping manage that population. Now, as it refers to Senate Bill 347, frankly, we're not sure that we see the need for it. And I say this as I had the opportunity to confer with a lot of hunters who use our lands, who use public lands, use other private lands in the state, and the scientists that we have on our staff, and I didn't receive any complaints about the commission, any issues of malpractice or other bias. In fact, I received a lot of compliments about the work they do. And so that is the way we come to Senate Bill 347. Perhaps I could have summarized by simply saying, if it isn't broken, don't fix it, is the feedback that I got the most from the folks who hunt and manage the lands that I interact with. Now, that being said, I've certainly heard the concerns from Senator Stephan, Representative Corbett, and we're not blind to the idea that there's anti-hunter sentiment that's out there. However, core to the commission and Section 21 is the idea that these regulations that be passed have to responsibly manage and preserve these wildlife populations. That's how we have that right to continue to hunt, to fish. To fulfill that right is that we have healthy populations. And so if this committee or the legislature deems fit to add additional responsibilities to the appointment process, it should be pursued in best practices and science that allows us to continue to exercise that right. And I think Senator Francisco mentioned earlier, from our perspective, the best way to do that would be to have objective criteria. I did pull a couple of states as examples, and I'll admit, Senate confirmation for wildlife commissioners is not unusual. It's common practice in some of our neighbors. It adds an element of political oversight to an area that we would prefer to be governed by science. But some of our neighbors, Colorado, for example, specifies categories or spots in the commission. They hold a spot for an agricultural landowner. They hold spots for hunters. They hold spots for outfitters. There's a way of guaranteeing you have those perspectives directly represented on the commission without having any kind of politics attached to it. Additionally, I think we've heard a lot of interest in commissioners holding fishing and hunting licenses. Mississippi requires that all commissioners have held those licenses 5 out of the previous 10 years before they come to the commission. I think that's a great way of ensuring that those folks have actual experience in the issues that they're dealing with. There are a number of other states that use either experience or some type of formal education to be considered to hold this post. And that would be our recommendation, that if there is deemed to be some type of amendment made to this process, that it be objective, not political, so that we can hold this commission responsible to the biology of the state, not the politics. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Cobb? Ms. Senator Straub.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Cobb, for your testimony. What influence, if any, does the Nature Conservancy have in the appointment of these commissioners?
Zero. As far as the Nature Conservancy goes, we do not actively engage with the Wildlife and Parks Commission. Our mission does not involve the promotion of hunting, although we certainly facilitate it as a management technique. I'm sorry, Secretary, but I have not attended a Wildlife and Parks Commission meeting. So we do follow them. We observe the guidance that they issue out, but we don't interact with them or their employment process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this bill is in the is about the process of appointing those commissioners. So I appreciate the work that the Nature Conservancy does. I have one further question if there's time. In your testimony, you said that the Nature Conservancy manages over 60,000 acres. Is that they own 60,000 acres?
Yes, those 60,000 acres are currently owned acres, which fully paid property taxes on.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that because I know my district strongly supports private property rights and private land ownership in Kansas. So thank you.
Additional questions, committee? Mr. Cobb, the Section 21 of the Kansas Constitution is a relatively new amendment that was added a few years ago. I certainly appreciate what you had to say about the fact that it appears that there has been no problem over the years, but the legislature apparently and the citizens of the state of Kansas felt that it was important to add language to the Kansas Constitution to protect the right to hunt, fish, trap. And so that's the reason there may be an evolution, if you will, of the need for this commission. Do you have a thought on that in light of the fact that the amendment is relatively new?
Chairman, I would say that we completely understand the concerns, and I'd say that my perspective comes from the folks that I had the ability to talk to, since we saw that this bill was introduced, because I was very curious as to the background and some of the issues that other people had experienced, and just wasn't able to find any. And I know there's been some heated debates over the past year about these regulations, and there's going to be some controversy, I think, always between regulating based on biology and the economic outcomes of those regulations. That's an inherent conflict. We would like to see the biology, the science, always is able to triumph in coordination with those. But to your question, Chairman, those are just instances that I've been able to, the folks I've been able to talk to. But I certainly understand that there may be a concern.
I understand. I appreciate that. And I guess I see Senate Bill 347 as potentially a little bit preemptive toward potential future problems. But we shall see what it is that the committee desires. Senator Ware?
Senator Francisco.
Oh, okay. Seeing no further questions, Mr. Cobb, thank you for appearing before the committee. Committee, we have no other additional conferees on Senate Bill 347. Therefore, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 347, and that is all that I have. Senator Dahl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to introduce Emily. She's from our district. She is an intern for Mr. Young, Representative Younger, and myself. She's from Ulysses, and she gets to see how the processes work.
All right. Thank you for introducing her. Welcome to the legislative process. You do have a difficult task with Senator Dahl and Representative Younger. I don't know the man, but I do know the one on the Senate side. But anyway, appreciate your work with these two legislators, and we trust that it will be a beneficial experience for you, and you'll learn a lot of good things. All right, with that, committee, we are adjourned.